Good evening, everyone. This is Can and İskit, and you are watching What's New, What's News. Today, the agenda is very bustling in Turkey, and I will be discussing the noteworthy developments in Turkey with my colleague, AFP Turkey correspondent, Eylül Deniz Yaşar. Let me invite her. Hello, Eylül. How are you?
Thank you so much, Jaran, for having me. Congratulations on your new new endeavor. I think it's very important that you're doing this. It's very important for media in Turkey. Independent woman journalists like yourself has to be supported.
Thank you very much for your kind words. I'm so glad to have you in this conversation as well, because we have some important topics today. Turkey's agenda is never stops. Actually, you might know better than me. So, by the way, for the audience, I would like to say that feel free to get involved by dropping your questions into the chat box if you want. So let's dig in quickly. Can Atalay has been imprisoned for a while now because of the Gezi protests. He was prosecuted, and the court actually ordered him to release, but this has been ignored for a while now. Even though the Constitutional Court decided him to release, Supreme Court is against this decision. So a clash between the Constitutional and Supreme Courts ensued, and the opposition party is now appealing to the former. But meanwhile, of course, Can Atalay has been still engaging with his supporters and his people from Hatay. Hatay is very important now, of course, because of the situation, and also the earthquake is hit Hatay the most. So he is very important figure now. So he's still engaging, and recently he used AI, and AI read Atalay's letter in his voice during the Hatay demonstrations, marking the 1 year anniversary of the biggest earthquake in Turkey. And also, I want to give a little bit brief about today. Actually, Constitutional Court President Zühtü Arslan addressed the Can Atalay crisis with the President Erdogan, and the Supreme Court President Ahmet Akarca was present there. And Arslan addressed Erdogan directly, empathizing the obligation to comply with constitutional court decisions. So my question for you, how do you interpret this presidents of the Constitutional Court's words today? What do you foresee for Can Atalay's moving forward now?
Obviously, this is one of the most emerging crises in Turkey going on right now. It's actually the lawyers that we have been speaking to about this whole crisis. They all agreed that it was the first in the history of the Republic of Turkey that the two highest courts of the country are actually engaging in a sort of like catfight. And it has been an unprecedented way of making Can Atalay's situation even more worse than it already is. Can Atalay has been like such a public figure that we as journalists have known him for quite some time, actually, because even way before he was elected as an MP, we have been seeing him quite vocal as a lawyer, and he was very vocal, especially when the time so many mine workers were killed in Soma and other workers' cases as well. So Can Atalay is actually coming from the ground to the top. He has been among the people, and he has been for the people, especially defending a very firm stance for let's say the working class rights, and therefore he has a wider impact in the society, and now he's becoming a symbol of all these injustices, like bringing on him like that. Obviously, now the analysis have been making these comments for a long while now. There is obviously this dispute with the dispute between the Supreme Court and the Court of Constitutional Court lies between the cracks within AKP and their partner MHP. And people have been commenting for a long while now. Obviously, there is a huge MHP effect and the Devlet Bahçeli effect actually on the Supreme Court. And now, actually, all the lawyers that I have been personally speaking to, they're saying that it is actually quite unlawful, and it's kind of an attempt to really destroy the constitution itself, because normally Constitutional Court is the highest place any Turkish citizen can go up to, and after that the only address remains as the European Court of Human Rights. And now the lawyer Kazım Bayraktar, for example, that we know him, he's also a very vocal advocate for people democratic rights in Turkey. He has been making this comment that this whole situation with Can Atalay is creating a very dangerous example for the future trials of all the people seeking further justice, taking their cases up to the Constitutional Court level. And now this sets a very dangerous example, because this means that if normally the decision of the Constitutional Court is binding for the Supreme Court as well. If you are just like throwing it back to the Constitutional Court's face again, this is obviously read mostly as the politicized seats, the levels of various levels of justice, and we are talking about the highest levels. And this has been the critics have been voicing for a long time now, with the Kobane trial going on, Kurdish MPs in prisons, journalists, our colleagues being in prison. It's very easy to throw a journalist in jail nowadays. So it's basically the and also when I'm just making like vox pop in the street, when I'm asking people, random people, about their opinion about justice system, we can say that even among the AKP voters, there is this sense of losing trust in the justice system. This is now felt in the deeper levels of the society more than ever. But Can Atalay's case, there is a second point that needs to be underlined. This goes way back to the part in the parliament that when Kurdish MPs were stripped of their duties one by one, one after another. And we know how CHP played a key role there, because all Kurds have been doing was actually trying to create a part of alliance against the AKP for a long time now. But in return, when it comes to the parliament, we have witnessed that CHP was actually giving a yes vote for Kurdish MPs to be removed from their duties, which created obviously. And at that time, if you remember, like years ago, if you remember the case of Leyla Güven, Sabahat Tuncel, all these Kurdish and Demirtaş beginning, not to forget Mrs. Alaaddin Demirtaş. So it's like it goes way back. And then back then, the Kurdish MPs were warning that this is a signal of worse days. I mean, this is happening to us today, but it's not just about the Kurdish MPs. They warned, and we have made many interviews with them by that time. They were warning that if the general democratic public opinion would not take a certain stance against Kurdish MPs being thrown away from the parliament one by one, just like that, it happened. When it was happening, everyone saw what was happening. But no CHP MP or now, they never thought that it would come to this level. This is only the very tragic expression of what was happening in the past, and it's a continuum of past events that the Kurdish MPs was actually warning for. What will happen next is totally unknown, considering the unknown nature of the Turkish politics. But what we can say that Can Atalay is now getting more stronger. Now with this kind of injustice being imposed just like that, he's getting more, he's collecting more sympathy from the wider segments. As much as the opposition votes are, like opposition people are having this kind of support aura around him, like this is kind of a new mobilization where everyone is like acting in unity. But on the other hand, when we see the grassroots of the AKP and the MHP, we see this huge terrorization campaign now. He is perceived and obviously at some level, Erdogan, the President Erdogan is effectively blaming him to be a terrorist alongside with other Gezi prisoners and especially Mr. Osman Kavala himself as well. So there is a really polarized opinion now revolving around Can Atalay's case. But I think he's not going to give up. He's trying to lead his people, and when he shares messages on Twitter and when his messages are read through, it's kind of like a Demirtaş example now, like a second case that his opinion is affecting Turkish politics more than many politicians speaking outside. So locking them behind bars doesn't really seem to work, honestly. Whatever he says, there is a public reaction. Even President Erdogan himself is obviously showing that he's following them, because he's obviously always keeping this discourse against him. So it's a pretty hot issue. So this seems to have pretty wider repercussions in the coming days. I mean, we'll just see what happens.
Yes, speaking about Demirtaş, actually that was the other subject. Maybe we can slightly move on, because on January 21st, Başak Demirtaş hinted at Istanbul mayor candidacy, sparking debate actually. But some speculate her husband Selahattin Demirtaş's imprisonment influenced her decision, and while others suggested negotiation with the ruling party for his release. As local elections near, winning Istanbul is crucial for both ruling and opposition parties. How do you evaluate Başak Demirtaş's candidacy and subsequent withdrawal afterwards? Because she is a strong figure after Demirtaş was sent to the prison, and now she was ideally a very strong candidate against Ekrem İmamoğlu from CHP as well, CHP as well. So how do you see this withdrawal affected now?
Well, this has been my basic investigation topic for since Mrs. Başak Demirtaş has come up with this huge political will. Obviously, she is a very strong figure, and like what she says has definitely had so much emotional effect. It creates an emotional effect, not just among the Kurdish people, but also among wider democratic circles, especially feminist and other progressive circles in the country. Başak Demirtaş has been a key political figure, even though she was quite a figure independent from politics. She's not like an active politician, but with his dear husband, Mr. Demirtaş being in prison like that, we have seen her a very strong political stance from her, and that was a pretty political Kurdish woman kind of prototype that we are seeing in Demirtaş being. And now she has never been afraid to make political comments, and she has been advocate not just only for her own husband, but also for other political prisoners and ill prisoners. And she has an opinion. She obviously has a political will, and I think that finds wider sympathy, especially among Kurdish voters, especially among.
Sorry to interrupt you. Meanwhile, I put the statement that her party, DEM party, actually shared on social media, so you can, for the audience, of course, they can read the statement as well. You can go on now. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. And now it created a huge blast. I can say, like the day that he announced her candidacy, it was a very moving day in Istanbul as well. I've been seeing some people from the HDP and their grassroots. I was on the street. I was asking everyone what they were feeling. And eventually on social media, you saw the huge impact. And Kurdish people were so enthusiastic seeing her as a candidate. And it was really unexpected in a way, but it was kind of expected because people were kind of expecting her to step a single foot in the domain of politics, and that was finally happening. But with that said, there is also another way that some people who do not really believe that it was her own idea, but it was mostly like Selahattin Demirtaş probably motivating her. Like, this is merely a speculation, but it is only normal because they are both like sharing the same political ideas, obviously, and it was very typical for Selahattin Demirtaş to raise support for his own life. But then again, Selahattin Demirtaş is kind of like a natural leader that the democratic Kurdish movement has raised.
And also he became a very symbolic figure now because he is imprisoned, and his trial has been ongoing for ages now, and all the human rights courts, all the civil organizations, international civil organizations, plus Turkish organizations have been raising awareness of his situation. Likewise, Osman Kavala as well. So of course he was also a symbolic figure for the socialist part of left-wing supporters as well. He wasn't only a figure for Kurdish public or Kurdish people, isn't it?
Even in the grassroots of MHP, I can say, during the election, I was always on the street, going to very conservative neighborhoods, street bazaars, small coffee houses, is what we call the kıraathane politics. The tea house politics was quite different. What President Erdogan has been terrorizing Mr. Demirtaş for a long while. But even when I was interviewing some MHP voters, they were saying that they have this kind of respect for Demirtaş. I mean, they still think, quoting like if he was distancing himself from the so-called terrorism that the Erdogan blames him for. But there is this like almost, I can say, a consensus that he is a respected figure, even in the grassroots of the government politicians. That includes MHP and AKP. But then again, why it was like totally unexpected for some people, but the researchers that I have been talking to, so in that I want to just give some references to several interviews that I have been conducting. As we know, one of the let's say Kurdish poll researchers that we all know is Mr. Roj Giresun. We have recently talked with him about his own opinions. He was telling me that their polls have already shown that more than 70% of DEM party's voters, its own base, was expecting a separate candidate, their own candidate. They wanted to see it, especially after the 4th of May. As we know, former HDP and then Yeşil Sol Party, and now with the new name, the DEM Party, has gone into a series of local meetings, what they call a self-critical process, because in the end, it seemed like they were losing a little bit of votes, and in the end, their identity was maybe a little bit deteriorating in terms of the Kurdish color of their politics. And
has he given any kind of percentage for how much they lost after the general election, or was it only
in general? And even when we look at the numbers coming from the southeastern Turkey, like the Kurdish majority provinces, we see that Kılıçdaroğlu has earned tremendous amounts of votes, which show that how organized the Kurdish people and the base of the former HDP, they're actually quite the most organized group of voters. Actually, they were united in Kılıçdaroğlu because the party has addressed them like as the candidate. So, but then the votes of the party itself have slightly decreased, especially in Istanbul as well. But then again, with this whole process creating a new kind of renaissance in the moment, I might say, the people were criticizing the party so much. I think it was a pivotal moment for the pro-Kurdish party, because for the first time, the Kurdish voters were actually bringing their criticism quite vocal. They didn't want their votes to be taken for granted by their own party, because we know that Kurdish voters are quite dedicated to their own organized movement, just as much as the AKP voters and CHP voters, because we know that there is this bone vote, as what we call the kemik oy, like these base votes that some people will always vote for the same party from their birth till the end of their lives. And it's because we are still a Middle Eastern mindset country. This whole voting process is not as rational as some Western critics may find it, because in the 4th of May elections, we have seen that huge economic crisis, the devastating earthquake, the opposition kind of take it for granted that if like if it's not the economy, it's definitely the earthquake is going to bring Erdogan down. But they were still thinking that people would vote in a rational mindset, but it wasn't really actually the condition, because AKP voters, and when we go to earthquake zone, which is another critical point, that western part of the Turkey is blaming quake survivors for still voting for Erdogan, almost like blaming them. And this has created a very toxic environment among the society. And when we go to the zone, in the earthquake zone, which I've been like more than now 5-6 times, both Kahramanmaraş and Hatay, with very different socio-political backgrounds, both city represent certain different political stances. As we know, Kahramanmaraş is definitely a AKP majority town, while in Hatay we see more left progressive Alevi minorities as well. So it was, but in Kahramanmaraş, people were resented so much to it. Like, they were like, we lost everything, and now all the people are like blaming us for the elections. And this whole process, like just summing up this whole environment of the society after the 14th May, Dem Party has created this self-critical process more than the CHP itself, because even after Özgür Özel being elected as a new face, he kind of present that this was a new era for CHP. But though on the street, when we look at it, people are not really convinced that CHP is renewing its mindset, because of the fact that most of the people, even CHP voters, are telling us on the street that it is actually İmamoğlu who is kind of like ruling the party, and not just himself. And as we are talking about some Demirtaş effects in the Kurdish politics, it wouldn't be so wrong to say that there is a strong İmamoğlu effect in the CHP politics. And I mean, this is what people are saying. It's not just merely a speculation, because İmamoğlu is such a strong figure himself. He's quite popular. He has been like the new leader profile for the CHP, and his historical, let's say, election victory was also a very important time that we have to remember, the 2019 elections. Now, analysis, poll researchers who are speaking to me were saying that, underlining that it was Kurdish votes played a critical role for İmamoğlu's victory. And now, having that in mind, from 2019 coming to this year's election, and also there's this 14 May, huge loss for the opposition. So this whole historical process, we have to take Dem Party's decision in relation with this historical course. And how did they move before in the general election and in the previous election? We see that they were having a very proactive role, making an alliance with the CHP, not like a formal alliance, but they were calling for voters. And it was again Mr. Demirtaş calling out from the prison to the voters of the pro-Kurdish party in a very dramatic way, to not openly saying it, but he was kind of inviting the Kurdish voters to vote for İmamoğlu for this time, just for the sake of having Istanbul back, which was kind of a moral moment for the opposition, because they thought that if we take Istanbul, probably in the election we will take Turkey. But now this whole narrative turned upside down in a positive way for President Erdogan, because we know.
I'm coming to that actually question too, because regardless Dem Party's decision on Başak Demirtaş, actually nominating a separate candidate for Istanbul is very critical, isn't it? Because this is what I got from your opinions as well. What is your insight on this, and what are the predictions for Istanbul? Did you hear any kind of rumors who will be the candidates for Istanbul from Dem Party, or how will this affect Istanbul, you think? Will İmamoğlu win, or would it be an advantage for Erdogan to win with Murat Kurum in Istanbul, you think?
I have been asking the same question to the Ravest Institute based in Diyarbakır, and then the Core Research Institute based in Istanbul. Both Ulaş Tor and Roji Giresun was highlighting a certain factors that might be affecting the local elections in Istanbul. What I can directly quote is that for the Istanbul researcher Mr. Ulaş Bey underlining, he was saying that there are three main groups that affect the outcomes of the election in Istanbul. The first is no questioning the Kurdish vote. The second is the nationalist vote, and the third is what he calls the Islamist vote. And by this he means kind of religious conservative votes that are not going to AKP, but rather the Welfare Party, which is the new coalition
Welfare
party.
Party, yeah.
Yeniden Refah in Turkish. So, and now with today's explanation as well, Yeniden Refah has also made a statement that they might run separately. So, analysis.
No, they declared that they will run this election by their own. So it will be challenging. It will be more challenging for ruling party, isn't it?
This is what they were saying to me. Ulaş Bey, exactly. He was definitely underlining it. He was saying that both the DEM Party and the Welfare Party running their own candidates, this is what is actually putting İmamoğlu in a very risky position now. Because in that case, when we were just talking a week before, and he was saying that in this case, the scenario that İmamoğlu could actually lose would be quite predictable. So, and there is also a deterioration among the CHP voters as well. So İmamoğlu, let's say because like if you remember the previous elections now with Sırrı Süreyya Önder being the candidate for HDP in Istanbul for mayoral elections, he was kind of getting like a 5% vote. And when Mr. Ulaş was highlighting this, he was saying that if Başak Demirtaş will be the candidate, they were expecting the votes herself to go as high as 8%, 9%, because as you underlined, she was a figure, a quite much admired figure that could attract votes, not just from the Kurdish voters, but also from the west of the country, the women, the progressive circles, the LGBTI communities, the other groups who are kind of not so much willing to vote for İmamoğlu. And Başak Demirtaş could be like a convincing name for them. But it's a fact that if Başak Demirtaş was the candidate, İmamoğlu, I mean, it will play a very critical role. It will be like a statement. It will be like a statement. It will be very easy for Murat Kurum to win, honestly. This is what the analysis has been saying to me as well. Like, it will be almost sure that it will be very easy for Murat Kurum to defeat İmamoğlu. But now, we don't know who the candidate will be. But Roj Giresun was also underlining that Başak Demirtaş is was kind of the strongest name that the Democratic Party could come up with as a candidate. But also the fact that she just appeared in the scene and then she just now disappears herself again. It's kind of maybe created the result that they wanted to create, which is that it showed both the AKP and both the CHP that Kurdish voters were very willing to go for their own candidate. And now, with a more symbolic name maybe, so we know that HDP is not going for a 50% in Istanbul. They're doing it with a certain political agenda to show that in the new era, they're going to run the game with their own rules. They will not, and this is actually what the HDP spokeswoman, the DEM Party spokeswoman was announcing many times more than ever, that the DEM Party will not going to play a role either to make someone win or make someone lose. And this time, they create this third way, as what they have been calling, actually in the general election, this was their slogan, that they wanted to create a third way in Turkish politics. But now, from Diyarbakır, Mr. Roj has made a really good comment the other time about this point I would like to underline. So the fact that in social media there was like a certain campaign, right? People, especially the CHP voters, were blaming the DEM Party, recklessly just making a secret deal with the AKP. This is a tale we know from the past. These are basically speculations, manipulations. There is not enough, neither proof nor like a strong source within the two parties, no leak whatsoever, like a strong source. There is no indication that there is such a negotiation has been going on, but obviously we never know what's going on behind the closed. But what the Raves director was saying is that all these social media campaign against the DEM Party, when they were announcing that they would run for a separate candidate, it's kind of a move to fluidize the consolidated bloc politics and the old mindset that he was warning that the opposition, the main opposition, could not get out of the May 13 mood. The opposition acts as if they didn't come out with such a historic defeat, and the opposition is trying to act with a very old political mindset, as if the elections are still in the same mood of the March 2019. But nothing is the same, especially for the Kurdish people, being everything taken away from their hands one by one. And the party, with this decision, has broken this given routine, because CHP people now were saying that whatever we do, because they are also opposition, the DEM party and Kurdish voters are kind of doomed to move for us forever. But then we saw that the opposition of 6 parties created this coalition. When HDP was actively supporting them, they actually acted like they weren't doing, like they had nothing to do with the HDP. And when it's time to get votes from the Kurdish people, honestly, they are very willing to get that. But when it comes to the Kurdish issue that the Kurdish people want to raise, they play all 3 monkeys. And this is now Kurdish people are getting much away from İmamoğlu in their mind now, because in the end, who wins Istanbul is not really the Kurdish voters' problem anymore, I think. The people that I've been talking to from HDP were all saying that. For example, last year and in the previous year, there were constant home raids in Istanbul, especially targeting the HDP members and certain local level activists of the party. And some of them were actually the members of the Istanbul Mayor's own local assembly, because what is actually local politics? I mean, why do we vote for a mayor, and then how do we get the reflection? There's also an assembly in the cities, right? It's like there's a national level assembly, and then in the city we see parties showing their own members in this local assembly, and HDP has these members as well. But when they were raided, their homes were raided, and then many number of investigations have opened against them. And now some of the Kurdish voters that I've been just speaking yesterday were telling us İmamoğlu had done nothing to preserve the members of his own assembly. And in the end, Kurds are being detained again. In the end, Kurds are losing their political identities again. They are being imprisoned again. And in Istanbul, we see Kurdish mothers. I have followed their protests many times, that their justice vigils and how they were trying to show up their voices for their imprisoned daughters and sons from the prisons. And all they were seeing was police violence. And this is also happening in Istanbul. And the moment they show up in the courthouse, like, I didn't literally have time to record them. It happened in like 5 seconds. 70-year-old mothers are being detained like that. And then again, Kurdish voters have this kind of certain resentment against CHP. This is a fact. In social media, you look at it, you see. In the Kurdish neighborhoods, you go, you see. Especially in Istanbul now, Kurds are saying, and now I'm just directly quoting from a Kurd to like make an ending remark of this part. He was just telling me that we don't have any apology to ask from anyone anymore. I think this kind of explains the Kurdish psyche a little bit more. They are tired of making some people win. I think the DEM party is now making a statement that they don't want to be a vegan in anybody's terrain. If they're going to lose, they're going to lose with their own politics. And Roj Giresun was making a point, very, very much highlighted, that DEM party, not to lose his identity, had to make such a move. And as a Kurdish poll researcher, I think he has a point that we have to listen to him more in the coming process, that because he's directly giving us more numbers from the southeastern Turkey, that it is actually, there's a point of existence now for the Kurdish people. And I think to show this political will and to show this existence, now they're actually playing the game with their own rules. And I think this will continue. And right now, it's very moving right now in the Kurdish cities with this freedom marches began. Hundreds of people, including the DEM party MPs, they're already making a huge campaign. I'm looking videos from Hakkari, I'm looking videos from Diyarbakir, I'm looking videos from Van, and we have reporter friends there. You see how enthusiastic they are when the Western Turkey is kind of still in the depressed mood of, losing the 14 May elections. The DEM parties already started to play out their own independent politics. And one of their demands are like the mother language demand and the physical freedom of the PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan. And now this whole freedom call for the PKK leader is now making a lot of noise in the southeastern Turkey. He doesn't want to hear that as well. Now, DEM party is not only making this decision in Istanbul, it's at national level now. I think they are now separating their road as the third way. And what Demirtaş did created the impact that I think she was supposed to. I'm talking with people that like, and the very same day the HDP MPs visited Mr. Demirtaş in the prison. It was a very kind gesture, and it was a gesture that, because also people are saying that is there like a clique within the Kurdish party, supporters of Demirtaş and those who are not really supporting him. But this has been merely a speculation, right? No, none of the Demirtaş couple nor the HDP has ever said anything bad against like there is like a separation between party and Demirtaş. Demirtaş in all his statements says that even though he quits active politics, he would be always a follower of the Kurdish cause and the HDP cause. But rather than
and also let's say accepted, he actually ran the election from the prison. So this is like a long story short, right? He ran the general election as a leader for DEM party from prison. So he is a very strong and respected figure for not only Kurdish voters, of course, but also left-wing side as well. Whoever doesn't want to vote for CHP anymore because losing the trust of them, they don't think they're reliable. So this is the fact, as you said, I believe.
And as a very last result, now what will happen from now? It's very important who the candidate would be if the Başak Demirtaş was still on the list. But now it kind of turns into a symbolic name now. From that point on, I mean, it can be like a very powerful name as well, honestly, but it can be some political figures that we already know from the movement, like Saruhan Oluç, maybe, and Meral Deniz Bektaş was recently on social media. Like names are already revolving in the street.
Yeah.
I mean, there can be like, there is a possibility that it can be still a female candidate, to give this purple color more after Başak Demirtaş to keep it. But whatever the name will be, the fact that now the DEM party is acting both against AKP and against CHP for the first time in years. That is a new arena of politics that we will just have to see, because now the CHP also have to consider some things twice on whether how to give voice to the Kurdish issue now. The ball is on their court as well. It's not only the AKP anymore, and now both sides have to still play for Kurdish votes. We have to remember that. So this is a strategic move that now getting this independent stance, I think with Demirtaş withdrawing, I think they have lost nothing. I understand there is a certain resentment because some of the people I was talking to, they were very excited about seeing her in the politics. And now they're a little bit like, the mood is going a little bit down. A little bit. And even in the Twitter comments, we can see that, like, what is going on in the background and everything. But I think in the end, what we can only see what we are seeing right now. I mean, not the speculations and the manipulations and various kind of really absurd conspiracy theories. There's endless of them. But the fact that what she did was, first, she showed that Kurdish people would be very enthusiastically supporting their own candidate, which was a message for CHP. And the message has been, I think, received by wider circles. Secondly, she changed the whole agenda. Again, everybody was talking about the DEM party. I think they're regaining their role as what we call generally the kingmaker role, which they were kind of losing in the 14 May. And Ulaş Bey from the core was also highlighting that they are trying to gain any power, a negotiating power, because they need urgent solution to various issues that includes the imprisonment of HDP politicians, the ill prisoners, PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan. Now the DEM party is taking a very active stance in calling anyone for a negotiation. So, and it is only politics. I mean.
Well, let's see the bigger picture now. The bigger picture says that crystal clearly, I believe, that DEM party and their voters want to be recognized, like want to be seen like they really exist in this country with a huge amount of people. It is not like we're talking only 8% or 7% Kurdish people living in Turkey. So maybe half of it now with the new generations are coming and coming. So I think this is very important message for them this time, and playing a significant role for the local elections, and it will basically uh, show Turkey's future as well, because this time they are in a very critical position to be there with their own candidates.
Exactly. Now that includes CHP as well. They cannot just take Kurdish votes for granted anymore. Kurds say no to that. All the Kurds that I've been talking to, even though they had various really varying ideas about the Demirtaş family, some people think they are way too much popular than they should be. I mean, the opinions change, quite drastically, even in the grassroots of the party. But the one fact that I've been noting down in each of the people that I've been speaking to, this includes the HDP people from Istanbul office, that they were saying that they're all agreeing to the fact that they don't want to be a vegan in the CHP politics anymore. All their goodwill for a wider democracy campaign, for a wider peace campaign, have been failed. And now CHP is part of their criticism as well. So it's obviously a more democratic process, honestly. We will be seeing a more vibrant political environment because the routine has been broken, for sure. Even as a journalist, like when I'm interviewing with the people, the questions are changing, the reactions are changing. It is so hot, it is so vibrant. The codes of the Turkish politics, as we have been knowing it in the last 2-3 elections that we have witnessed, is now changing. And it's the wind is kind of changing on the back of the DEM party. I think they may get their influence a little bit higher and higher in the coming days. Their motivation and morale is pretty high as well.
It is crucial. It is really crucial for Turkey that DEM party is stepping up and showing their existence now determinately, actually. Okay, speaking about the local elections, now I want to pass. Of course, you have been in the earthquake zone as well. The last topic is earthquakes happened in last year in Maraş and Hatay, and now 1 year has passed, yet there has been little change, especially heavily affected Hatay. And recently, the discussions is surrounding around CHP's, like the main opposition party's mayoral candidate, Lütfi Savaş. He is facing a backlash, refusing to resign. And despite the speculations today's CHP party assembly meeting was postponed as well. People are saying that, they're waiting for another election poll, whether people want to vote for Lütfi Savaş again or not. But we have seen the biggest picture 2 days ago when the earthquake marked the first anniversary. So you have been there. What is your insights for this? Will Lütfi Savaş, you think, resign, or forced to be resigned is another option, because İmamoğlu made a statement while he was in Hatay too. And I think it's very critical that they postponed the party's assembly meeting today as well. What is your opinions about that?
I mean, you've been in Hatay as well, and especially in the anniversary of the quake. I mean, like this scene, this couple. This tells everything.
Yeah, and by the way, thanks to Kazım Kızıl, he has been there for a long time now, and he shared his video with me. Thanks to him, by the way. Yeah, you can move on now. Thank you.
I mean, let me just tell everything. That night, no one slept. We all watched what was happening in Hatay. And it was heartbreaking to see how nothing has changed in Hatay since the day one. Yes, they have cleared some debris and everything, but all the people we were talking to, also in Kahramanmaraş as well, but Hatay, considering the amount of devastation in Hatay, I mean, it's uncomparable, but though, like especially in those cities, the pain is so young, and people were all saying that they were still living in the exact timing of 417. It's not like a year passed for them. It's for us. We are saying that a year has passed because we were there and then we come back. We are only going back and forth. But for the people, for the locals who have been there, they're just saying the time has frozen for them, and psychologically, mentally, financially, and they don't have a home. Some people are still finding refuge in tents, are either the container towns. I mean, the situation is really quite bad, needless to say. And then Lütfü Savaş, I mean, no one wants him. None of the people that I was talking in Hatay, not a single one of them. And anyone who goes to Hatay will see that. You ask them about Lütfü Savaş, you are going to hear what you're going to hear. No one wants him. I mean, this is the voice of the people. And CHP is still doing the same thing. They're so angry. These people that we have been talking to were also the ones who have always voted for CHP for their entire life. And now they're saying like, what? They demand a change. They demand a change now. And Lütfü Savaş, his last remarks were quite confident for someone who is criticized as much as he is. Like, he was almost blaming that this is like there is a secret group, a group of AKP provocateurs. I think he's trying to say that, trying to make this campaign. But anyone who goes to the field will see that it is like it's not a conspiracy thing. People on the ground don't want him. And CHP was making this huge campaign revolving around the discourse of change. And actually, Özgür Özel has been like kind of a hope-giving figure in the grassroots of the CHP. So, and they were like, finally, we are changing, you know, like the mindset is changing. The defeat of Kılıçdaroğlu was not, because, I mean, they didn't give Kılıçdaroğlu like any second chance, right? Because it wasn't really a second chance. It was many, many chances of years, and he kind of lost it all. So it was kind of a window of change.
After 13 years, actually.
But now in Hatay, this whole window of change, this course is now collapsing before our eyes, and people like, what kind of a change is it? Like, just for the sake of change. This is what people were saying. Just for this change. I mean, don't you have anyone else? Anyone but Lütfü Savaş. Because, I mean, Hatay is a symbolic city right now. It is, exactly. It is, maybe we will discuss Hatay more than Istanbul, more than Ankara, more than Izmir. It was the heart of the devastation. And like, Hatay is a very key point right now. And the politics revolving around Hatay is quite important for any party's future. If CHP still continues to go in this path, this will affect all their popularity, all their public support in wider nation, because it's really a very national matter. And I think, what can I say from what I talk with the people, the quake survivors, like they want a change, and there is an ongoing justice struggle of these people as well. So they want anyone as part of the building of these really weak constructions. And now we are seeing really weird reports prepared by the specialists. I mean, some of the reports that we have seen from the destroyed apartments, I mean, they're almost not putting any blame up to a certain level, because for a building to be built, there are 40, 50 signatures is needed. But we see in the reports that only 3 or 5 or 10 of these actors are being now prosecuted. And what else? Like, up to a point. And it doesn't go as high as the municipalities. And for the public officials to be witness. And now the justice system not so willing to get these people to the court as someone being prosecuted, you know. None of the public officials are like being charged right now. And now if the CHP is doing that, the leader of the municipality is like, you know, I mean, he could be even a part of an investigation in a court, because people are saying municipalities played a key role in building these constructions. I mean, when
He
people
signed all the documents about the build up those buildings, right? So
I mean,
he is the biggest part of this responsibility of the earthquakes.
people
How to
demanded something
account for
from the
them.
municipality to make some kind of explanation in many of the cases. People want accountability. People want, I mean, they don't know as well. But what people are saying this, and a really independent investigation. And when the authorities are already failing to do that, and the main opposition is failing to do this own investigation within itself. So because it was very easy just to blame the AKP and Erdogan as the mother of all evils, you know, when it comes to criticize the responsibility of the of those, you know, sitting in the higher chairs of government. But then now CHP is putting up the same candidate. People are saying like, well, you're criticizing government for not to take any responsibility for any of the things, but are you taking any responsibility? They show that they don't really have anything to do with this. So I think this will have wider repercussions as well. I mean, Hatay people are angry. They're definitely they definitely don't want him, I can say.
Well, this is obvious what we have been discussing about him since from the beginning. Actually, when the earthquake happened, people didn't understand how he remained in his seat. So this controversy has been ongoing since the earthquake happened, and still I don't know, but CHP take a quick action for that to rearrange things in Hatay. Otherwise, they will lose, because now Hatay, as you said, Hatay will play the critical role during the local elections as well. So we will see. Is there anything else you would like to add? You would like to share, Eylül?
Not really. I think we said much. I just want to wish you luck on your new journey. It's really important for some of the things to be discussed this independently. Thanks for giving me this platform as well.
Thank you so much joining me with your remarkable insights as well, Eylül. It was wonderful for me to have you here. Hopefully, we will do more lives with you as well, because we are all journalists following news closely, especially in the heart of Turkey, and closely following Turkey's agenda. So I'm sure we will do more lives with you, and thanks for your support as well.
Inshallah.
Hope to catch you soon.
Thank you.
Right, while we are coming to an end today, please do not forget to subscribe my YouTube channel for more insightful discussions like this. And please consider supporting me on Patreon to help sustain our quality content as well. For now, I'm wishing everyone a fantastic weekend, and I look forward to see you next week, Tuesday, as we delve into fresh topics shaping Turkey's politics. Until then, take care and stay informed.